Welcome to the Way to Be podcast. This is where we chat about how awesome health professions, partnerships, and practice is. I'm Rachel Glade, and this is...
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Rosenzweig.
And we both have experience in working with families who have children or adults with hearing loss. This season, we are talking about all things auditory verbal therapy. And today, our topic is auditory verbal therapy around the world. We could not be more thrilled to have with us Dr. Uma Soman. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here with both of you.
Awesome. All right. So we'll start today. The first question is going to come from Elizabeth.
So, Uma, if you would tell a little bit about your personal journey of how you came into this field.
Sure. Thank you for that question. So I was born and raised in India. I spent a little bit of time in the Middle East where my dad was working for a little bit. And when we were in the Middle East near Dubai, before Dubai was fancy and special, my younger sister was diagnosed with bilateral profound hearing loss at the age of 7 months. And that was new and that was news, and the path forward was uncharted. So my parents, being the awesome parents that they are, found out everything that they could, got hearing aids on her. Back then, ear molds had to be sent to Switzerland because that was the only place that was doing soft ear molds in the region, which is crazy to think about now. But fast forward, we ended up moving back to India because there weren't services available in the United Arab Emirates at the time. My sister started with body-worn hearing aids. My mother was told that she should wait until she was 5 and then send her to a residential school for the deaf. My mother knew better. She said, no, there's got to be another way. She did the John Tracy Clinic Parent Correspondence Program. We would get these lovely colored paper lessons, I remember distinctly. She also did a diploma in deaf education, or diploma in special education hearing impaired, as it is still called in India, at our local university. This program was taught by 2 women who had graduated from the Clark School Smith College program themselves. So back in 1990, 91 maybe, when my mother did this program, she would practice her lessons and take me to therapy with my sister. And that's how I entered the field. I eventually got the same diploma program, did the same diploma program my mother did, except in a different town in Mumbai. Came to the US for my master's at the Clark School for the Deaf Smith College program, taught at a variety of option schools, and then got my PhD and joined academia.
Wow. It's interesting that, your mom kind of started with the Clark program and then you kind of came in and also benefited from it as well. It's amazing to think about, generational impact of things like that. That's so cool. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, even Rachel, one more tidbit. When I was in the teacher training program in India, one of my mentors was also a graduate of Smith.
Wow.
So I had the Smith influence a few times. The therapist my sister saw was taught by somebody who was trained by Dan Ling himself.
Wow.
So there's a international impact of listening and spoken language happening from pretty early on for me.
Wow. So I know you're involved in so many things, and there's just no way that we could have you on here and not talk about listening together. And so I would love for you to share a little bit about, how that came to be and maybe what your future vision is for that, because it's amazing. I want people to know.
Thank you. So Listening Together is a nonprofit organization. We are based in the US, but a majority of our work is done with people in India or the Indian subcontinent. I would say 70-80% of our constituents are in India. And the goal is really simple. We want to increase awareness, we want to build capacity, and we want to foster leadership at the grassroots level. There's no reason that a child who is deaf or hard of hearing fails to reach his or her full potential just because of where they are born or how much money their parents have. It just doesn't compute. And that was part of the motivation. My younger sister was able to achieve what she has today because my parents had a trained professional supporting them. Our co-founders have similar stories. And that is the idea. Listening Together came about because children deserve opportunities. Parents deserve chances. Professionals deserve to have the best, most updated knowledge that there could be so they can support children and families. Listening Together has been around for 5 years, and we have evolved a little bit every year. We're a small but mighty organization, and it allows us to be quite nimble. And our primary focus has always been on empowerment and capacity building. Empowering parents through group sessions, empowering parents through parent education sessions, connecting parents with each other. And again, when I say parents, I mean all caregivers. We've definitely have some grandmothers who've joined in from time to time, some grandfathers who have, sort of peeked into the session and are listening on the side while the session is happening. And I have to say that Uma Medidati, our current board president, and Aladni Rao-Dugar, our co-founder and previous board president, were the two who were instrumental. Aladni is no longer with Listening Together, but in those early days, she made a huge impact on the parent empowerment piece of things. I've always been more engaged in the professional development piece, which is a pretty big one for Listening Together. It's a cascade model. We believe that if we train the trainer, then they're going to go on and work with many more families. So over the last 5 years, we've done long courses, short courses, webinars, and our numbers show that we have worked with 100 professionals in India directly. Wow. Across from the north to the south. And then through our webinars, connected with over 500 families in the country. We're still in the responsive stage of things. What do we need? What is the topic we need? And then we talk about it. Our most recent project was on creating an assessment protocol for a more diverse population where standardized assessments aren't available. And a core group of professionals from India, mostly from India, worked on that together to become leaders to show us the way. So increasing awareness, building capacity, fostering leadership. That's what we have been doing and we will continue to do. I'm not yet sure what form it will take.
That's so exciting and really incredible to think about those numbers in such a short period of time. And so you mentioned that through Listening Together, you're both supporting parents and helping to grow more professionals who can then increase capacity for families in India and elsewhere. What would be your tips that you would give to maybe parents or professionals who are interested in getting more into this field?
So if I wanted to recruit them into the field.
Perfect. Give us your sales pitch.
I would entice them by saying that this is a field that is so rewarding because while we never want to take credit for a child's success, it's always a team effort. But when a professional brings their expertise in listening and spoken language, and I'm saying spoken language because we're talking about auditory verbal therapy, but a teacher of the deaf specializing in sign language would do the same thing in sign language. As a teacher of the deaf in this field, bringing my expertise in listening and spoken language, but also child development, academics, literacy, self-advocacy, social emotional development, I think we make a pretty big impact on a child's life. I've been in this nostalgic mood because my first set of preschoolers are all have graduated college this year. So the little kids that I saw when they were 3 and 4 are now posting their graduation pictures. And that's special. And the fact that their parents are still connected with me in a way makes me think that, oh, there was something that I added to this process. That was something that was there. So one of my tips would be to, if you want an exciting field where every day looks different and you can see the impact you make in a few years, this is definitely a field to consider. If you're already in the field and are wondering, what am I doing? I think about, I'm going to give a tip that I got from Dr. Melanie Shealy when I was in my PhD program. She used to say, think about what you be when you grow up. What is the topic you want people to invite you to be a keynote on? And one of the things I would highly encourage people already in the field to think about is, think of one topic, specialty, approach, technique that really, really resonates with you. And learn everything you can, do everything you can. And then it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like, oh, I get to do this, not I have to do this. For me, it's working with kids who have been identified late or have additional challenges. Those are definitely my people. I won't say I'm the most well-read on the topic, but those are my people. Those are the cases that make me the happiest.
Wow. I think it's so cool to think, just even, the names that you've mentioned, and to think, that you started out, having this family connection, but then look at how all of this has blossomed into a way where now you are training others to serve other families. I mean, again, that's a whole point of some things we want to highlight with what we're trying to do here is you may start out not really knowing what you want to do, but you just never know where life's going to take you, and it can take you some magical places. So it's just so cool. Okay. Next question. I'll get off my happy bubble there, but I get excited thinking about it. Right.
Rachel, I was doing it was like a career intro to middle schoolers during the pandemic. And I said to them, I said, this is a fantastic job, job, right? But find something where your job becomes your joy. And I know you said this was about highlighting the happiness, the joy in health professions, and you have to find it. You have to find your joy. Here's another tip, which is maybe too much, but I've made a rule for myself. And I say to myself, I look at my week and I say, am I looking forward to every meeting on my calendar? And then, sometimes there are admin meetings that I'm not looking forward to. That's fine. But if it involves another human being that I'm working with, I say, am I looking forward to every meeting on my calendar? And then sometimes, I have to own up and say, you know what? I'm actually not looking forward to this mentoring session or this intervention session with the family. And it's a great check. Why am I not looking forward to this? Mm-hmm. And more often than not, I realize because I feel I'm stuck. I feel like the child's not making progress. I'm not able to make a connection with the caregiver, whatever that is. And I think it helps. It helps go back and be unstuck and continue to have and maintain that joy.
Wow.
That's a great tip.
I know. I'm thinking I'm going to share that with my graduate students because I think we all experience that stuckness, but framing it in that way helps you kind of locate the source of stickiness and then hopefully get into that problem solving mode versus the spinning your wheels mode.
Yeah, I think it relates to being a reflective provider. We talk a lot about sometimes as a provider, we can get kind of stuck in being in that information giving phase and that, okay, here are our objectives and this is what we need to do. And this is the data that we need to gather. But I think, taking the time to reflect, and in my mind, I'd always thought about that, post session or post evaluation or post meeting. But I love your thought of thinking, hey, I can be reflective even before my week even starts. That's cool. That's a new tip for me that I'm going to take. So thank you for that one. So question, you mentioned a little bit about who your mentors have been and a little bit about your inspiration. I wonder, is there anyone else that really comes to mind or any particular situation where you're like, you know what, this was a changing point for me where I thought, this person believes in me now, and I something I didn't think I could do. Maybe speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm very lucky to have very positive influences and mentors in my life. I'll mention two from the field. The first one would be Kathy Sussman, who used to be the director of the Weingarten Children's Center in California. And Kathy and I met because she was the mentor to our option school in Nashville. I was at the Mama Lear Hearing School, which was a new option program, and she was our mentor for the program. And one thing that it was so obvious from pretty much every word she said. There were two values that came through over and over and over again. And one was that of, we are teaching children to learn. We are not teaching them words. And Weingarten Center has had this cognitive curriculum that Kathy and Janet Weil taught us. And that has been a game changer. I am never in the business of teaching words anymore, or even teaching language for that matter. I'm in the business of teaching independent thinking. And that happens to involve words and language. So I will teach the words and language that go with it, but that's not where we stop. We want to make sure that we are not focusing on children just being able to express needs and wants. I want them to be able to describe and argue and persuade and convince and, all negotiate, all the things we do with language to live life. Recently, my sister, I was visiting and she was just on her phone the whole evening. And I was like, what is going on? Why are you constantly texting? And she said, oh, there's just so much office drama and I just need to handle it. And I was like, there you go. You know what to do to handle office drama so you are not assigned extra work that you don't want to do, which should she want to do? Different question. But she didn't want to go in on the weekend to do this extra work and nobody did. And thus there was drama, but she knew how to handle it. And I think that is what we want when we say we hope children can grow up to reach their full potential, whatever that is. Independent, productive, enviable lives. So Kathy definitely taught that. She also, in hindsight, it seems duh, but she was the first one who said out loud, convincingly, we have to meet the families where they are. If I'm available at 3:00 and 4:00 for an after school meeting, I just don't assign the meeting time. I say I'm available at 3 and 4, which time works best for you? I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. So a big shout out to Kathy Sussman. And then a second big shout out to Mary Ellen Nevins, who the year is 2008. I am stressed out about taking the auditory verbal educator exam. It was a new thing. LSLS was now open to auditory verbal educators, which is who I am. I'm not an AVT. I'm an AV Ed. And she was touring with Kathy. See, we come back again to Kathy. And Kathy had brought Mary Ellen to tour the school. I think there were some trainings. And I was teaching a story or something like that. It was my 2008, so it was my pre-K class. And I remember Mary Ellen saying, that was really good teaching. Can I get a recording of you teaching the story so I can share it with my grad students? And I was like, I teach in a way that somebody wants to show this to somebody? That's pretty cool. And, I was a decent teacher. Children were making progress. But I didn't know I had more potential than that until somebody said, oh, this is good. And Mary Ellen has done that for me time and time again. She's currently on the Listening Together board. She's been a lifelong mentor. Her work position term will end soon, but she's been invaluable.
I think that's so true about a good mentor, right? That they see something in you that you haven't yet recognized in yourself and give you the confidence to believe that you really could be as great as they see that you are. That's really exciting. I wonder also, you've shared some memorable moments, both, your former preschoolers now graduating, moments of pride in your sister's accomplishment. You've done so many different things in different places. What are some other memorable professional experiences that you might share?
So, an experience from this week. Listening Together is doing a program called Project Prepared, preparing professionals and parents for rehabilitation and education of children who are deaf or hard of hearing. It's a very creative spelling for prepared, but it works. And we have anybody and everybody who works with children, because that is something that's interesting about AVT Around the World. In the US, we expected to be a teacher of the deaf, a speech language pathologist, or an audiologist. In India, it also could be a special education teacher, a clinical psychologist. It's a little bit in terms of who might be in this role. So we've basically said, if you are doing this, you want to learn more, come. We don't have a minimum qualifications requirement. And one of the things we're doing in the second module of learning to lesson plan to meet the child's need is we have peer mentoring. So we have two people working together. And in some of these study buddy pairs, one of the people in the pair is a current LSLS mentee of mine. So this particular person, I had paired them with somebody who is maybe going to need a little more support with the foundational knowledge. And I had said, I want you to learn the process of meeting a professional where they are, because you're going to be LSLS soon. And I hope you're going to mentor. And this is your practice run for that. And this person was like, okay, I'm going to try my best. So I debriefed with them after their first study buddy session. And the person says, well, this person said that, fill in the blank, right? I won't provide details. And then I thought to myself, well, how can they do that before doing this other thing? I don't know if that's the right thing. And then my mentee says, and then I thought to myself, let me wait and ask a reflective question so that this person might discover what they need to be thinking of. I was like, yes, all my years of not telling, and I'm very much still practicing it, ask, not tell, are now being seen in the people I have been working with. And that was it was as big as some of my little kids now graduating from college. So that was a recent, from last week, memorable experience where I'm like, oh, I am firmly mid-career. I have mentees who are going to go on and change the world.
That's so great. My next question is actually related to that, about what are your tips for current professionals, like maybe resources and things. But I just want to highlight a couple of things you've already mentioned. So one is that if you are, mid or later career, how important it is for, I want to say, I feel like I'm kind of mid-career too. So I'm going to say us here. So how important it is for us whenever we see potential in future leaders or, educators or speech pathologists, whoever coming up to say, hey, that was awesome. Or ask those questions like, have you thought about expanding on that? Or have you thought about maybe becoming an influencer in this area that you're very clearly passionate about? So I think being bold enough to lift someone up is a really big thing. And then the other one that you just mentioned is, again, getting out of that telling mode and asking those reflective questions, or encouraging reflection, or I wonder what might happen, right? Those phrases are so cool. So those are two gems already. So I'm excited to see what this next answer might be. So what tips or resources might you recommend for current or seasoned professionals?
So one tip that two slogans that I've been using right now, three in life are, the first one is language is learned while living life. So therapy should not be fake, unnatural, or contrived. And yet, when, especially in India, families are coming to the center, it's not in the natural home environment or a daycare setting. So there is this element of it's contrived. I'm going to set this up, and children are sitting in high chairs and, the things we don't like. So the rule is language is learned while living life. And I have my mentees think about, if this 2-year-old had not been deaf, what would they be doing right now? That is what they need to be doing. And we bring the listening and spoken language to it. And then that sort of takes care of the child development, social emotional piece. And I think frees up the parent from thinking, oh, I have to do exactly like the therapist at home. I mean, we've seen some horrible videos of the parent making the child sit in a high chair and saying hello. And I was like, what's with the hello? And they're like, well, the therapist always starts with hello. So I'm like, yeah, but you've been together for the past 3 hours. I don't think, tell me more about why you think hello is a good idea right now. Right? And they're like, no, that's what the therapist always does. That's why we do it. So this language is learned while living life, and whatever the child would have been doing is what we need to be doing. That's one. And then the other one is engagement, not compliance. I don't need the child to do anything for me. I need the child or the parent to want to do it because it is meaningful, engaging, interesting to them. So I am not a big fan of making children comply to anything. Just this morning, I started with a new kid. I've only seen this kid once in person in my last visit in India. We're off to a later start than would have been ideal, but this kid is amazing and the parents are incredibly involved and engaged. And I had prepped mom. I said, look, he's maybe going to stay 10 minutes around the screen, not even in front of the screen. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And I had prepped a couple games. And at one point he said, okay, bye. And I said, that's fine. I have one more game if you would like. If not, I'm going to talk to mom and okay, bye. And he sort of like gave me a look of, oh, what game do you have? Let me see it. And I had a Curious George counting game. And he did like 3 rounds. And I said, okay, you did what I needed you to do. Okay, bye. And he goes, no, more. And that to me is, we could have done this whole thing. We could have said, no, you have to sit 10 more minutes. If you sit 10 more minutes, I will give you a piece of candy or whatever, right? Which would all have been extrinsic in compliance. But instead, by making it engaging, I got the same result. And he thinks I'm cool because he went and then brought some of his games and was showing it to me in the background. So I have a positive relationship set up for the next session. So language is learned by living life, engagement, not compliance. 2 tips for any healthcare professional.
2 more very powerful tips. Those are great. And so I wonder, you work in global hearing health, but you're also working with children and families and professionals here in the US. What are some challenges and opportunities that you see being the same or different in these different environments?
So I live in the Midwest and we are relatively rural. So sometimes we have the same issues in central Illinois that I have experienced in India. Bad internet connection, distances, resources. I used to work with a family who would come to sessions only if they had enough money for gas. And that was just their reality. And I'm sure that's not just a central Illinois thing. That's a many places thing. So when resources are scarce, it's happening in both of these settings in the US as well as in India. Another thing that I see in some ways, it's heartening. Families are starting at the same point with almost the same feelings and responses and worries, right? Parents are parents. They want what's best for their child. Doesn't matter if they live in a mansion or if they live slums is what the word is in India. If they live in a mansion or if they live in the slums, and wanting the best for your child has no geographic or financial boundaries. And that has been really exciting and powerful. One opportunity that I have seen, and I only realized this after I started working in India, some of the impact that Listening Together has been able to have is because there is a clear cultural connect. So an example would be one of the very first presentations I did in India. I was talking about something and I said, it's a little bit like when you make a dosa. A dosa is a South Indian dish. It's like a crepe. And I said to everybody, I said, the first one never works out because your griddle isn't hot enough or your batter is in the right consistency. And you just do it because you need to get started. And then you adjust your variables and the next one is going to be much better. And by the time the griddle really heats up, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be fast. It's going to be easy. And the audience just burst out laughing. Later on, somebody I knew in the audience came up to me and he said, we've always only had international speakers and they were great and they were giving really good information. But this is different. This is a different learning experience because you are able to provide examples that are meaningful to us culturally. And I had just given that example offhand. I was not intentional in choosing that example, but that definitely made me reflect more on the cultural connection and the intentionality behind it. So even when I'm working in the US, if this is a family whose cultural I don't know enough about, then that is something I will take active, intentional actions to make that connection, to be responsive. And I know cultural linguistic diversity and cultural responsivity are buzzwords that we've been talking about and have always continued to be important to us as professionals in the health fields or the allied health fields. But it's not just words, it's life, it's real life.
I think that's incredibly important, and to make sure we're taking the time to do it too. That's some of the stuff that's hard to do, but worthwhile in the end, for sure. So I'm curious. I mean, you've already had a really impressive career and worked with so many families and professionals. If you had it to do all over again, is there anything that you would change, or maybe a decision made earlier, or stay away from? Like what might you do differently?
So, well, there are a lot of things I'm glad I did without knowing that this is where I was leading. But one thing I would change, and I wish somebody had made me do this, was learn about child development more intentionally earlier on in my career. In India, you get admitted to the diploma program as long as you have a bachelor's degree. And my bachelor's was in philosophy. And it was in philosophy because the class timing was convenient to go do theater practice. So, this is not how one should choose what undergrad they do. But those are my priorities. I was very active in the theater and I needed a good chunk of time to be doing that. So if classes could be clustered at this time of the day, it was just easier. And I got into the field having seen kids, but it was all instinct. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't knowledge based. And my instincts were decent. So they saw me through for many years. I wish I had more intentional knowledge earlier than when I did. And that would be something I would say to everyone. We work with children who are often on an atypical developmental path. We can't deal with atypical until we know what's typical. And that was a realization later on in my career. And I know I would have done things differently and better for those early years if I had this knowledge. So that is one thing I would do differently.
I never knew that about your undergraduate degree. I love it. I knew you were a theater person, but I didn't know that determined your entire undergraduate career. But see, I think in addition to saying, I wish I had known XYZ earlier, and I completely agree with you about child development, because you're exactly right. We get so used to seeing child development that sometimes is occurring in the absence of sensory input or with delay or disability, that it becomes very easy to lose sight of, okay, what's typical? And I think sometimes then we interpret really typical behaviors as problematic. And then you really need the reality check of, no, actually, really, this is just fine. But I think your story and your weaving path to getting to where you are today also illustrates that the path is not always straightforward for people. And you can do a philosophy undergraduate and still get to this point in the field. And it doesn't always have to be something you knew for sure was where you were going to end up. It's an unpredictable.
Right. Yeah. So let me also do a hat tip to my other job. I am assistant professor at Bonbon University in St. Louis in the Communication Disorders and Deaf Education Department. And we have a leveling course. And thus, we see many non-traditional students who have come to deaf education or speech language. There's a leveling course for speech language pathology. The deaf education program has a wider qualification, we accept a wider range of qualifications and backgrounds. And to me, everything you have done before enriches what you do next. And I think by saying there's only one path here, we're actually limiting the potential diversity in our field. Mm-hmm. So anybody out there listening to this thinking, oh, that sounds interesting, but now it's too late for me, or I don't see a path. I'm sure there's a path. Reach out, find your people. I mean, the Bonbon University program is closing next year, so I can't say reach out to us, but reach out to me or Elizabeth or Rachel, because we will try and figure out your path with you.
Yeah, there are lots of different ways into the field and lots of different ways to be really good at it. And I think families need to see that as well, because families don't all fit the same mold, and students, pre-professional students, don't all fit the same mold. And so if we're all just trying to be like that one really good teacher or therapist we saw, sometimes you don't fit, and that can feel really discouraging. But actually, there are a lot of ways to be great at this, and we need a lot of different ways to be great at this.
Yeah. I tell my mentees a lot. I said, during the listening and spoken language specialist process has the mentoring component. And I think of mentoring as a closed relationship, right? I mean, this person is willing to show me what they are great at, but also where they might be feeling vulnerable. So to me, there has to be trust and a good match in this relationship. I say to all of them, I said, at the end of this process, the goal is not for you to teach like me. In fact, we failed if you teach like me. You should be teaching like the best way you can with the knowledge and skills and the evidence-based practices that we should all be using. So the goal is not to be a copy of me. The goal is to find the hidden gem, the hidden diamond within you, so that we can all be different, because children need different professionals. And if my specialty is this and you need something else, then this family is going to come to you versus me, and we're going to share this family.
I think it's so great to talk about how we can help each other connect and find paths for each other. I think that's part of lifting up future professionals and ultimately helping families, right? So that's all great. I have one more question, and then we'll get to our rapid round.
Good.
Yeah. So you mentioned about different disciplines of students that come through your program, and even working with different disciplines in India in terms of who's doing the therapy sessions. What I guess number one, what all types of different disciplines have you worked with? And sub question, what would you recommend when working on those interdisciplinary teams when sometimes there can be a little tension about, maybe overlap or who's doing what? So what might you have for us there?
So I have had the pleasure of working in large teams, primarily because a good chunk of my career was spent teaching at option schools that were connected with medical programs. So at Vanderbilt, the normal ear hearing school was connected with, all of Vanderbilt. Here in Illinois, at the Carl Auditory Oral School, we were still connected with the Carl Hospital. So the teams have often been really big. And the one thing, again, this is me starting with my eye. I need to know what my scope of practice is and have the expertise to justify working on those skills and targets. That doesn't mean that only I get to work on language, because that's silly. But that means I get to contribute to the conversation on language as a lead intervener, as opposed to certain areas where I'm the supporting or the receiving professional. So, for example, this kid long time ago had deafness, blindness, some other health concerns, and potential autistic-like behaviors. We had a huge team. We had a big team with all the professionals, all the therapies, and all the push-in and all the pull-out. And it was difficult to even know when this kid was coming into my class and leaving. Right? So as a teacher who was supposed to have this kid 6 hours, 5 days a week, maybe I had him 2 hours, 4 days a week with all the therapies that were happening. But I am a firm believer of a common communication portal, platform. So back in the day, we had a clipboard that went with the kid and everybody wrote on it. Now that I'm working in India, we often have a shared WhatsApp group. So it's the parents, it's any other professionals that I might be working with. And there are several moms who said to me, I don't know what's the point of adding my husband to this conversation. He doesn't do much with the child. And I said, well, maybe he doesn't, but then he will get to know how much you do with the child and at least know the work that you've been putting in while he is at the office. And from that, we have seen fathers be more engaged, maybe sometimes in their limited manner. I work with a family in the northern part of India where dad has essentially said, all I can take responsibility for is reading to the kids at night. That is all I can do. And I was like, that is more than enough. Mm-hmm. We will do this book reading at bedtime and make a thing out of it. 20 minutes, those are going to be the best 20 minutes of the child's day, of your day. 20 minutes of focused language input. We can make this work. He's like, that's all I can take responsibility for. So be it, right? Mm-hmm. And that shared communication, not just interdisciplinary, but even across the family. We've had WhatsApp groups with mom, dad, and grandma, because those are the three primary caregivers, along with whoever the other professionals are. So working with interdisciplinary teams, to summarize this answer, know what it is you are bringing to the table, and then figure out how you can communicate together. And no one professional can be the most important professional in this child's life.
So great. So it's so great. I should have been like keeping a list of all the golden nuggets that you've said in the last, hour. It's amazing. So Anyway, makes me feel good. Okay, so now we'll move to our rapid response round. And so this is where we'll have 90 seconds, and Elizabeth and I will just kind of rapid fire some fun questions. You're welcome to pass at any time. So if there's something you would either prefer not to answer or just aren't sure of, just feel free to pass and we'll move on. Any questions?
No, I am so excited about this.
I have to say, this has been kind of the most fun part of every interview because we love talking to people and they're all people we admire, but this is fun. Okay, I'll start. On your mark, get set, go. City or country?
Country.
Coffee, tea, or soda?
Coffee.
What is your secret talent?
Coming up with songs on anything and everything.
Cats or dogs?
Cats. 100%.
What is the strangest thing you've ever found in your pocket, wallet, or purse?
Pass.
Morning person or night owl?
Morning.
What is your secret for surviving long meetings?
Water.
Netflix or YouTube?
Netflix.
What is your favorite color and why?
Red, because it has energy.
What is your favorite recipe to make?
I would say the very simplest of Indian rice and lentils, because it is the best.
Fiction or nonfiction?
Fiction.
What do you like to do to relax?
Watch Netflix.
What is the weirdest food combination that you enjoy?
I don't know if it's the weirdest, but I love pineapple and jalapenos on a pizza.
Oh.
What would be the mascot if your office had a mascot?
A cat with a crown.
Okay, see, I think we now have the Listening Together mascot, a cat with a crown in the Listening Together colors.
We could do that. Well, that could be my personal mascot.
Exactly, to cheer you on.
That could be your icon, like for all of your conversations.
For all my meetings.
Yeah, I love it.
I'm envisioning it now.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I see
I'll
it
have our
already.
illustrator do it.
There you go. See, you already have the team in place.
You have a team
for the next book. It should be a character in the next book. We should also mention that Listening Together has books.
Yep.
We do have a book that is out, Maya and Sid, Making New Friends. It's in English, available. We're working on translations, and the second book is ready in my brain. It just needs to go on paper.
And we have to add the cat.
And we have to add the cat. I think it's just going to be this little icon that follows, and people are.
I would love it.
Why is there a cat in this classroom?
Find the cat on every page.
Just outside the window.
Yes.
It will be a Debbie Gleary strategy. Debbie Gleary's books always have an icon.
Something hidden.
And you discover its importance on the last page.
I love it.
Well, it sounds like the concept's already there. So
it is. I just need to find the time to sit down and write this.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dr. Soman, so much for joining us today. I feel like I've learned a lot. I'm sure our listeners have as well. I really guess there's only one thing left to say, and that's way to be, Dr. Soman. And perhaps someone in our audience, perhaps for them, this conversation has maybe sparked that this might be a way to be for them as well, maybe in their future professional career, or maybe just in something to learn more about. So with that being said, thank you again. We're wishing you the absolute best, and we're looking forward to future conversations.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. This was a blast.